Good morning, everybody. This is Carrie Getz, and welcome to another edition of our podcast series. Today, we are talking to Delphine Carter, who has started this great company called Bulo. So, Delphine, tell us a little about you, and then we'll get into what your company's doing and the cool work you're doing there.
Yeah. So my name is Delphine Carter. I'm the founder and CEO of Bulo, which is Bulo Solutions, but we call it Bulo. And I've been in business largely in product and technology, building SaaS software for over 10 years as a product manager. So I've been creating high performing teams, putting developers, and of course, the whole infrastructure around a product, pushing change and agile practices. And we've just been trying to solve problems in different spaces around our world.
So tell us a little bit about how you came up with Bulo and the whole putting housewives back to work and putting women back to work, which I think is particularly important right now because 5 times more women than men have lost their job during COVID. And tech has not done a really great job of using tech to solve some of our solutions, like moms being able to work at home when their kids are sick and that kind of thing. So tell us a little bit about your work and your mission and your vision for what you guys are doing.
Absolutely. So it started when I was a product manager. I would launch a new solution and I would need to get somebody in the door pretty quickly who could start doing some copywriting for us, help us run projects, and also help us with marketing. When I went through our people team or our human resource department, I kept getting the same people over and over again. I wasn't quite finding the people I wanted. Well, on the weekend, I would be at the ball field and there'd be a mother next to me lamenting about how she couldn't get back in the workforce. And she'd have the exact skills that I was looking for. And so a friend of mine and I, who she happened to be one of those moms who couldn't find her way back into the workforce despite doing some really successful and amazing things. So we decided we were going to start putting together a survey monkey, a couple Excel spreadsheets, and start finding moms through social media who were interested in getting back into the workforce and figuring out a way to get them to offices and to businesses who could really need them and who really valued them. What we found was that when businesses started speaking to these women, they immediately recognized their value. The problem was that on a lot of job boards, so like Indeed, ZipRecruiter, and LinkedIn, if you've got a nonlinear career or you're that generalist, kind of non-traditional, it's really impossible to get surfaced. So these talented women just weren't showing up on anybody's radar. So we decided to do things a little bit differently. We create a 360-degree profile for women so that businesses get to know them as a whole person instead of just a timeline of work. And it's really helped hiring managers get past their traditional resume biases into seeing the value that this person could bring to the table. And so we've got over 1,000 women right now, and we've placed over 175 jobs, I guess, by now. And really the proof's in the pudding. These women, when they get onboarded with these companies, they start getting promotions and they start becoming permanent pieces of the team. And it's just beautiful to see.
Yeah, I think that's so important because, and we talk about that a lot on this podcast, how HR just really needs an overhaul because so much of it is dependent on these applicant tracking systems and it's all keywords. And if the right keyword's not in there, because really HR people are not technical people for the most part. And so it's very difficult, I think, in a lot of cases for them to do it. Like I was talking to somebody the other day that reached out looking for a job that said, that they had all of this experience with CRM packages and they got to the HR hiring manager and they said, but it's not Oracle CRM. So, I'm sorry, we're going to have to pass, even though realistically they all do the same thing and there's not that much difference. And so I think they miss a lot of those parallel skills. And to your point, people that have been out of the workforce for a while, caring for family or becoming caregivers get overlooked because people see that gap in their resume, which is, I think, really sad.
It's incredibly sad. I mean, these women, we had one woman who came on board and we were asking her about what she'd been doing during her gap. And she's like, I've just been a mom. I did some volunteer work for the school. I negotiated the citywide contract for Promethean boards, which is the smart boards that are in schools. I negotiated that contract, but that's really all I've done. And we were like, hold up. People get paid to negotiate those contracts. What you're doing is just because it's free doesn't mean it wasn't work. And there are companies who will value you for that. And so the onboarding systems that are out there today don't account for what she said. It would have fallen under a volunteer work and really minimized by the system when it was really just a really valuable skill that she gained.
Yeah, technical procurement is definitely a specialty. It's very, very different than regular procurement. And I think in a lot of cases, these companies now are looking to more technical procurement because people have to understand the technology very much the same way that we procure technical talent in HR, trying to balance those skills and the ways people fit in.
That's exactly it. And I just, I originally thought, okay, we're going to, these big goals. When you start a business, you've got these big tech goals. I was like, we're going to blow up resumes with this digital profile. And what we realized is people weren't willing to let go of the resume, but we could at least change their minds from the get-go by overlaying something that looked a little bit different. But you're right. A lot of the hiring managers are not super technical, so they may not understand the roles they're trying to hire. And they feel like order takers when we speak to them. They feel like they're told what to get. This person needs a college degree. Nobody's going to talk the hiring manager out of it. So the talent acquisition teams are kind of left with the requirements they've been given.
Yeah, we talk about that a lot on this program too, that there's a lot of people out there that are, a year shy of a degree or a semester shy of a degree because they had to drop out of school for some reason that may have literally nothing to do with their ability. And they worked for that semester or that year. And so that last year of college actually became a year of experience. But because they don't have that exact degree, they would rather hire somebody with a degree that's completely non-applicable than somebody with the technical skills and some experience because they don't have that degree.
There's also a little bit of grit that comes from those people who've just hustled and gotten their own certifications, their own boots on the ground learning versus the person that went to school, some of them because their families were able to pay the whole way and they didn't. There's just a little bit of grit that I really loved when I had a developer on my team who was self-taught and then had passed all the certifications. They just had a fight to them that was really a huge value to the team.
Well, I think so too. And I also think that there's so much talk about diversity and inclusion, and people forget that bit of grit adds a good bit of diversity to it, right? There's a lot for clamoring and sorting things out and building those puzzle pieces together. And if you're going to take somebody with a degree in a different area and go send it for those same certifications, why not just start with the people that have those certifications? Because realistically, curriculum is a very, very slow moving machine. We have that problem in the data center industry now. There's so few colleges that teach data center curriculum. People come in from other avenues, either from electrical engineering or coding or something else that really, for the most part, has nothing to do with a big chunk of this industry.
And there's industry that's really similar to that that's forming. It used to be that marketing was very much about copy, pretty pictures, pretty words. Now it's become a very technical role. And so when somebody comes to us and say, we need a marketer to help us figure out SEO, how to figure out the website, build it out, there's a lot of technical acumen that comes with learning the algorithms for ad spend, for the SEO and everything that goes on behind the scenes. So if you had a college degree back in 2000 in marketing, it's not going to be near as helpful as the person who went out and got the Google Analytics certification and the SEO certifications and some of the more technical, really valuable skills to build a marketing team for today.
Oh, I absolutely agree. I think that really any job that requires 8 years experience should not be requiring a degree at all because it's 8-year-old curriculum.
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you said that. Yeah, absolutely. It's pointless. Accounting, if you did it back in 1998, there's so many rule changes, it's obsolete. They might as well experience overwrites that 100%.
Oh, I think so too. I was talking to somebody for this podcast about a year ago that said the same thing. This person had 12 years experience and was getting turned down for job after job because they didn't have that degree. And she said, I was in college. I couldn't even tell you what I remember from college. And I got to thinking, back to high school algebra. If you don't use it, you lose it. And so I think we undervalue experience a lot.
Exactly. And I don't know exactly how to get over that other than just more of your listeners championing it in their companies and more people who have met those perfect professionals that don't have that degree, but have really proven themselves through that experience. and a wide range of experience, right? It doesn't have to be that you have always lived one life in marketing. There's a lot of value that comes from somebody who's been in the sales role, who's been in a project management role, and then has become something on the tech side. Really, all of that experience builds into a really interesting person.
Well, it does. And I think it makes them that much more valuable to the organization because they can work with the other departments and understand the pain points of the other departments and what works in the process. And it cuts a lot out of that whole training time. And I think it brings a different perspective. So even if you're from a different industry and you come into a company in an IT role, but from a different type of company, there's a diversity of thought there too, right? If you've worked for a manufacturer and now you work for a consulting company or vice versa, consulting, you get lots and lots of background and experience in a lot of different verticals. Some might be retail, some might be finance, might be gaming, it might be, a ton of those things, but all of those bring and build that perspective that you bring to the table.
Well, Carrie, one of the things we found out with launching Bulo was I think the key to diversity and to getting experience for a lot of these people who are just dying for experience is the small to medium sized businesses. I think they've got the agility and the grit themselves to really take a quote unquote risk on somebody who doesn't have this like 10 years of experience doing one exact things. So with Bulo, what we've found is small to medium sized businesses under 500 employees are the perfect fit for our moms because they're ready to onboard them fast. They offer them a flexible job culture and they love that generalist because once they bring them on the team to contribute this one skill, they can plug and play them in different ways. And I think we all know we've built our businesses by wearing 18 hats and everybody on the team is going to have to wear 20 hats. So the small to medium sized businesses, I really think are, and tech specifically, because they live in agile environments, are really well suited for helping change some of our diversity, equity, and inclusion issues. Ironically, they've been lagging in it, but they really are the best suited to make the change.
Yeah. There's so many companies that sort of hire from somebody that's recommended to them. And if you hire people that you hang out with and drink beer with or go play golf with or whatever, you don't get much diversity there.
You really don't. You end up with the exact same people that you're giving. Yeah. So everybody has these great referral programs. So, we'll give you $1,000 if we hire one of your friends. That's great because I guess maybe you got somebody who there's a little bit of history there, but really you are just perpetuating the problem versus spreading the word into areas that you've never ventured into before and saying, we are intentionally trying to find ways to add different thoughts into our business. Can you help us? So just reaching out, when we were looking to build out our team, and we realized one day I lifted my head and I said, holy cow, we're a bunch of middle-aged white women. That can't happen. Like we're not, Bulo was not created to solve the problem for middle-aged white women. And so it just, sometimes it can happen so fast and you can't ignore it. You've got to own it. And so I just started reaching out through LinkedIn saying, I love your background. I bet you've got an amazing network. I'm looking to hire this person. Do you know anybody? And everybody wants to find their friend a job, especially if there's a great offer on the table. So that's really, I think, how you can be intentional about expanding your network.
Well, I think that intentional helps small businesses anyway, because customer bases are diverse and you're certainly not going to have mind share with your customer base. And, there's been all kinds of studies now too, that talks about these millennials and these kids that are coming up. They look at companies and they look at their board of directors and they look to see who the management is. And if they don't see themselves in those positions, then they're not going to go to work there. And it's so important just to have that variety. It is the spice of life. That's a saying that was popular when we were young. I don't think that the kids know that so much nowadays, but yeah, absolutely.
I think that, everybody talks about the millennials and, whatever. There's all sorts of millennial opinions out there. But the generation that's beneath the millennials, and I can never remember what they're called,
Gen
one of the
Z
letters.
Or Gen X, one of them, yeah.
Yeah, it's one of the, and so they are the ones that are purchasing with their hearts. And so, like you said, people are researching on Glassdoor, how diverse is it? What is the culture like? But there are people who are consumers, the younger consumers especially, are looking to see, what is your company culture from a purchasing standpoint? Do I really want to be giving my money to a company that I may not believe in how they're running their business or what they're doing? And so hopefully some of that pressure will really change things to where there's a lot more B-cert companies who are committed to community over profit.
Well, community over profit, sustainability. I mean, there's several key issues that I think a lot of us at our age sort of took for granted and just kind of figured that all this would come along. Right or wrong, it's just kind of, because we were so reactionary. Business was so busy and everybody was just kind of doing what they can. And I think that it has shined a little bit of a spotlight in that. And two, if you are going to work for a company, due diligence is a big piece of what you want to do, because nobody wants to go to work for a company and then decide a year later it's horrible, or a month later that it's horrible. And those reviews and those opinions really matter.
It's interesting. Those short stints at a company that you're just not quite the right fit, it really takes years off your life. For any of you that have done it out there, and I definitely had one of those where I thought the grass was greener and I didn't do my due diligence and I joined a company, and I swear that year that I spent there felt like 8.
Well,
so it's well worth taking the time to research.
Yeah. So I heard this saying a long time ago, and it's so green. Sometimes the grass is greener on the other side of the fence because there's more manure over there.
I love it.
Isn't that great?
That's exactly what, yeah. There's a veneer that can be put on a lot of businesses. We're excited to think that the more women that we get out there, we also have an offer called Springboard, which is helping businesses find women to put on their boards. So especially young tech companies that have to fill a board because they just got investors who require a board. We are helping them find women. And then once these women get the experience of being on a board, so they bring, amazing PR capabilities and can help a startup really learn how to get that publicity. Once the women get that PR board seat, or that board seat that goes on their resume, hopefully we can start changing the number of women that are on these public boards. And then that as well can have effect on what we talked about, businesses that are run with a different integrity level.
I think it was JP Morgan Chase said that they would no longer take a company public if they didn't have a woman on the board. And if a company wanted to go public and didn't have a woman on the board, they would find one, or that was pretty much it, because they've proven that companies that have a woman on the board do significantly better than companies that have no female representation in the board of directors. And I think that speaks volumes just for the difference in thought and the diversity in thought and what that brings to the equation. And I would even go farther to say that, to me, diversity is not just male versus female, but it's young versus old. It's anybody that thinks differently than the majority power of any organization.
That is such a good point. For example, my entire team is female. I need to add a man on my team because they will bring a thought that is different from ours, experiences that are different than ours. A lot of the people that are making the purchasing decisions are men. So why wouldn't we have somebody on the board? The majority of the consumers, if you're in a B2C business, is a female. So you need to have women that are at the table. So you're right. You need to look at your team and say, okay, what's missing?
Well, and not only that, it brings a great new network to the equation, right? Because he's probably not going to hang out with the same people you normally hang out with, or that are in your company. That's a whole different, so that's a new introduction to new business. That's an introduction to new resources. And I think now we're seeing too, it's not just women that are caregivers. There's a lot of men that have become stay-at-home folks because they might make less, or, for whatever reason, it might be his family that needed a caregiver or something along those lines. And we're seeing those roles not be quite as traditional as they were maybe 10 years ago.
Yeah, we've got 15% of our platform is males for that same reason. Let's say the female is the one who's getting a fellowship or a residency in medical school, or it's the female that has an amazing career in the military. And so they become the spouse that takes care of the children and follow around. As we can get this pay equity to balance out, we'll see that a lot more as well. what we champion with a lot of our businesses is the flexibility that we ask you to provide and that we really tell you the value of. It's not just for women. The minute that we can accept that a dad takes an hour and a half away to go take the kids to the dentist, that helps the women as well. So it's really a parenting thing or a caregiver thing, no matter your gender. As long as we understand that Carrie can be as efficient stepping away for an hour to take care of something and making up later, or just reaching her KPIs the way she needs to, it'll change things for everybody.
That's come up on this podcast too for maternity leave. Why not have equal paternity leave? And then we don't have to worry about whether a woman is of young childbearing age, because now we say that, well, you can take off and take time with your family, even though it is typically only 6 weeks in this country compared to a year in other countries. But the point is that I think it can be equal across the board.
That's right. Well, and as many of us enter the sandwich generation, which is, for example, my parents are older. So when my kids, they're not really older, but once my kids age up, there's the potential that I may have to end up taking care of my parents. And so that's hitting us a lot more with the baby boomers. And that's going to be another pressure point on businesses. If you're not offering flexibility, you will lose people, not because of children, but because they need to be able to leave and take their parents to the doctor. They need to be able to make sure that they are safe and healthy. And so unless you're going to start opening up your definition of success, which it should not be button-in seats from 8 to 5, you will lose people to the businesses that have caught on to what really makes them successful.
So let's talk a little bit about that for COVID and remote work. How has that changed your business profile?
It's been incredible, actually. Businesses that at one point were really reticent to allow for the remote, they would push back on us and say, we're just not there yet. We're not ready. We're not ready. Well, they didn't have a choice. So come March of 2020, they had to immediately learn Zoom, learn Slack, figure out how to trust people when they couldn't see them in the office. It freed them up. So now we're getting businesses who at one point said, we really can't do flexibility. They're saying, we don't care. We've noticed people are being equally efficient. Maybe there's one person who's really not done well and they're just not a right fit anymore, right? Like they might have to exit the organization. But we're finding so many businesses that have found their own freedom as a manager when you let go of worrying about where somebody is every minute of the day. People are now realizing if we can put some great goals in place, some key performance indicators, that's now our measurement of success. So it changed our business in that way. We've got a lot more businesses offering flexibility. We place women in contract, project, or permanent job roles. A lot of companies are really trying to mitigate risk by bringing in a variety of teams. Instead of always having a full-time employee, they're now looking at bringing in a contractor for one piece, project, somebody who's going to execute on a project, say an HR document, and then a permanent person to fill the rest of it. So their teams are now looking a little different instead of the traditional 40 hours a week full-time person.
Yeah, there's a huge cost savings to be had there, certainly from a benefits perspective, because, projects aren't constant and nobody wants to bring somebody on board and then have to turn around and lay them off, which is kind of brutal. That's something that no manager really enjoys having to do, for sure.
And we get requests, for example, we talked about this just a second earlier. We'll get a job request for a full-time person who is a website designer and who also posts social media. That is not one person. You're going to end up overpaying for the person that's posting social media or finding somebody who's not doing great website design. And so what we guide our customers is hire a contract person or a project this out to build the website and do the website design. And then you can get a part-time person to lay out your social schedule and really get those executed. But when people start trying to create a full-time role out of all their bits and ends of chores that need to be done at the office, you're just never winning at any one thing.
Yeah, I think that's part of the reason that Upwork and Fiverr and some of those have done so well because, well, for two reasons. One, there are a lot of those smaller projects, and there's also a lot of people that want to pick their work hours and what days of the week that they work and pick their customers. So they have that flexibility. And certainly as a young person, I will say, when I was new in the industry, consulting was great for me because I got to learn about so many different types of operations and what people do and how their IT needs work in those different operations and kind of play with things as it goes. And then, work from there. And I think having a platform where you can sort that out with references and help people understand those pieces is probably better than somebody just going out to a site where you kind of take a shot on whether somebody is great or not, because you don't really know with a lot of the contract people. And I probably get, I don't know, 20 emails a day, somebody trying to sell me some kind of contract services. And if you had to vet all those people, especially the ones that are out of the country, and figure out how to pay them, it could be really difficult.
Yeah. And we've tried to take that pressure off of a lot of people. We do the vetting for all of our customers. So we vet them, make sure that they represent our brand and make sure that they kind of stand up to what they say they do. And then we also help facilitate the payments, the 1099 tax forms, and then the contract. Because what we recognized when we were doing our research to start Bulo was that was a big barrier, slogging through everybody who's on Upwork, figuring out how to make sure that they were just even an honest person or the right person took too much time. People are just inundated with the volume of people that can reach them when they post something. And now they find that they will get 200 resumes by posting a role on Upwork or posting a job on Indeed, and just spend hours and hours slogging through wrong fits.
Well, and that's part of the problem with those systems too, is that it has to be keyword driven, and that's how people weed people out. But unfortunately, you end up weeding out some of the best resources you could have because they didn't have the exact right keyword sitting on their resume. And you're right. I mean, it just becomes daunting.
Resumes look like social media hashtag posts. I feel like every resume just is just this giant block of keywords or typically like a hashtag almost of what they can and can't do. And really all they've done is gone online and looked for the words that need to be in there. It's really, as we said earlier, it's just a broken system where people need to really slow down and be sure that they're hiring the person for their entire quality, not because they had the 5 right keywords.
And there's so many people that are out of work right now because of this stupid virus. And that just, I think, multiplies the number of ones coming in because everybody's trying to get a side hustle and everybody's trying to figure out some way to work through their actual business being closed. And I think that moving forward, technical recruiters are going to be in such high demand for exactly the reasons you're talking about.
Yeah. In December, women accounted for 100% of the job losses. So there's definitely going to be an influx of people that are out there looking. Now, the technical managers or the technical hiring talent acquisition teams really, I hope they'll give a chance to some of these women who are taking advantage of certifications from NCWIT, the National Center for Information and Technology, taking advantage of some of the certifications where they're getting reskilled, and we'll give them a shot in those roles as junior developers so that we can start writing the number of women that are in technology.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And we really are kind of in a unique position here that we can reshape what our organizations look like and we can reshape those. And I will say too, having been a manager for a lot of my career, when you invest in people, you get loyalty. And that's something that you don't get if you just, HR brings you somebody that has skills or you think has the skills that may or may not have the skills. But if you take somebody and really invest in their time, there's a loyalty there. You get a kid out of school that's saddled with massive amounts of debt and they're always chasing the next biggest paycheck. And if the environment is not spectacular, then you're going to spend a year and a half really investing in their skills only to train them for your competition. And if you take somebody that has some of these skills and really give them the environment to learn and grow, the loyalty is amazing.
I think that definition of what gains loyalty changed a ton during COVID. Technology companies specifically, they built it so that people were in a situation where they never had to leave the office. You can do your laundry here. You can work out here. You can, we'll bring catered food to you 3 times a day. They put all these perks, quote unquote, around them so that people would stay there and work. And they thought build better communities. I think what COVID is introducing is that people don't want to spend 50 hours at work. They realize that they can do both. They can get their job done and still have their personal lives and still get their chores done and what they need to do personally. So I think that's going to be an interesting shift for a lot of your followers and about a lot of the companies that we work with, is redefining what gets people's loyalty.
And I think there's a segment of people too that are going to really look forward to going back to the office, to having that in-person interaction. Because, these tools are great, but they're not everything. And I kind of feel like there's going to be some balance in between where people get to select, do you want to be in the office? Do you want to be in the office 1 day a week? Do you want to be in the office 2 days a week, 5 days a week? And by the way, if you have to take off and work remotely for a day, then we're not going to frown upon you because we've already proven that works. And so I think the whole dynamic of what the work setting is going to be very different coming out of this.
That is what all the studies are showing right now, is that offices are going to get reshaped into more common areas and conference areas, to where when you come into the office, it's because you're doing collaboration. It's not because you're coming to sit in a cubicle and knock your work out. You might, because maybe you got a lot going on. You don't have at home, you don't have a way to really segment out your work life. And so what that means is people will be able to make their choices. Maybe there's a minimum that you come in 2 days a week, 3 days a week. But I think each business is going to start redefining what their requirements are. But employees are going to be able to dictate a little bit more of, this is how I work best. Can this work?
Sure. Yeah. And I was talking to a friend of mine who happens to be on the spectrum, and she has a very, very difficult time working where there's noise. And so for her, she gets twice as much done at home because she can make it very, very quiet. I'm the opposite. I thrive on noise and chaos, and it works better for me. I have either music playing in the background or something going on in the background, some kind of noise, TV or something. But I think those are the kind of things too. We can be more accommodating to people that have specific needs or challenges and figure out where they thrive the best.
And won't that be, I think that'll just be an incredible, and of course there'll be some evolution from there. The biggest discussions people are saying when you look at, if you're on Clubhouse or LinkedIn and everybody's talking about the evolution of the workplace, it's that what we no longer need to do is establish a culture for one person. And so if you are a culture of flexibility and somebody abuses it, you don't revert back to another situation to where everything's on lockdown. Or if one person says, hey, I work better from home, not everybody has to work from home. Let's just figure out where we shine and get the best work done. So you're right, 100%.
Yeah, I think as long as you're accommodating, I think it's better for business as a whole because you get the best out of your employees for sure. So we are bumping up pretty close to time here, but if you had a couple things, first, tell everybody how to get to Bolo. And second, because some people are going to be listening, not reading, although I will absolutely put the links in the comments. And then if you want to leave people with words of wisdom or something as a parting gift, what you would have to say.
Okay, let me do the first one. So how can they find us? They can go to boulosolutions.com. That's BOULO solutions. They can post a role. It's free. There's absolutely no commitment to post a role. You'll get 3 to 5 profiles within 72 hours. Once you find the perfect person for your team, then we'll start talking about the fee. And as well, if you've got people that are listening that are in a full-time role and working like crazy and just can't get it all done and struggling, well, we can help them find a full-time role with a flexible organization. Or if you've got somebody who's listening who maybe wants to just get back into the workforce or shift to project or contract work, there's no fee to join Boulo as a member either. Just go to boulosolutions.com/talent and start going through the process. So my words of wisdom are, when you see a resume that looks a little bit different, but there's something there, just interview them. That's all that we ask, is just take that time to interview them. It's 30 minutes out of your day, and you'd be amazed at what you'll learn from just a handful of those experiences and the amazing people that you'll end up hiring.
That's really great wisdom because everybody knows the written word can be taken in multiple different ways. And honestly, those conversations are absolutely the best. And I think we do too much in writing these days and not enough speaking. And I think it's gotten a little worse over the years. But to your point, yeah, 30 minutes, just talk to him and see. You'll find out pretty quick whether they're worth it or not. I absolutely want to thank you for being a guest today. And I hope everybody takes advantage of the Bulo platform and just give it a try. I love what you're doing. I love the fact that we're really working to get a lot of these women back to work, or a lot of these stay-at-home people back to work. And I wish you all the best success. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Wish you the best too.